Principles of learning and forms of education. Strategies for engaging remote learners. 90% success indicators are online. So before going into the main session, I would like to recall the four revolutions that had already taken place in education. So teachers and from school and so to the back. And the revolution of electronics that application of mass media created a free what is it?
Andhra Medical College, please mute your mic.
For that. So remote learning refers to an environment where student, teacher and information will not be physically present, and they are separated by time and distance. Not only that, the information transmitted is in a traditional classroom it is through the teacher, but in a remote learning it is transmitted using a technology like email, discussion boards or video conference. And it can be either a hybrid or a blended learning. Hybrid refers to the key difference between two styles of remote learning is that the blended learning works by combining two things, that is e-learning and traditional learning. As for hybrid learning is concerned, it works by allowing students to choose whether to learn in person or to participate in online. So there is a difference between hybrid or blended learning. And it can occur both synchronously and asynchronously also. So synchronous is real-time streaming of the sessions, and asynchronous is store and forward way of transmitting the session. So it is also referred as distance education or virtual instruction or remote learning. Now coming to the major difference between the online and traditional learning. So online education is flexible. The schedule is flexible, and the learners can self-manage themselves, and they can able to troubleshoot and then monitor their own study. They can take responsibility for their time and time management, as well as where they want to learn and how they want to learn. Provided it is suitable for the current generation learners, because they are all tech-savvy students. Learners, and they enjoy typing as a primary way to communicate. So now, if you look at the students, the modern generation students, they are good at typing not only in tab or in mobile phone. They are also good at typing in their laptops. So they prefer to learn by watching videos and participating in online days. So they expect some sort of interactive kind of learning sessions, so that will help them to participate more actively. So this is kind of engagement they expect from the modern teacher. And traditional learning, comparatively traditional learning is face-to-face learning, where where the teacher and student are physically present in one room, and it has a fixed schedule, and the learner has to travel to the place where the lecture is taking place. And mostly the learners enjoy learning by reading and reading books and then writing. And technology is only an optional in this in the traditional classroom. Mostly it is restricted to the PowerPoint presentation or the LCD projection. Now, there are a lot of apprehensions among the teacher educators or among the educators about the online education or about remote learning. So one is online education a formal education? So these are some of the major apprehensions that our teachers have. They think that our teachers are trained only for handling the physical classes and not for online classes. And our curriculum is exclusively designed for face-to-face session and not for online sessions. And the other apprehension is, can online learning addresses all three domains of learning? And is online learning an active learning strategy? And can online learning foster all-round development of students? So these are some of the major apprehensions our modern educators have. So coming to the types of education, the first apprehension, that is the types of education. There are three types of education which are referred as formal, non-formal and informal education. And medical education is always delivered as formal education. There are apprehensions about whether online medical education is formal or or informal education. Online medical education can be made formal by adopting the principles of adult learning and principles of formal education. So now let us see what is the adult learning principle says. Adult learning principles refers to a set of theories, rules, strategies that are applicable to the learning courses, materials and solutions targeted for adult learners. These principles apply to all modes of education, including online education. So principle 1 states adults are internally motivated and self-directed. Unless they are internally motivated, you cannot make them to learn, and then you cannot involve them in the learning process. And the second principle states that adults bring life experiences and knowledge to learning experience. And third principle says that adults are goal-oriented, and unless there is a goal fixed, they will not, they won't tend to learn, and they will not tend incline to learning. And principle 4 states that adults need relevance in terms of content and context. So it is relevancy oriented. And principle 5 states that adults are practical. They expect practical or hands-on experience. And moreover, the last principle talks about adult learners like to be respected. So they expect them to be respected for their learning, for their presence, for their interaction, for their response, all these things. So these are the principles of adult learning. If online learning can take care of these adult learning principles, definitely it can be made more productive and engaging for the learners. And the second thing is the principle of formal. If the adult online learning takes care of the principles of formal education, again it can be made more effective. The principles of formal education includes learning design or instructional design, the learning objectives. So you have to design, you need to have a concrete instructional design for providing the online instruction. Of course, it will definitely have learning objectives, what you want to teach, and at the end of the session, what you expect your learners to learn. And then enhanced course materials. Unlike the traditional classroom where the teacher is physically present and then teacher physically shows the learning resources, here the enhanced course materials refers to online resources and inbuilt assessments. So online engagement of learners should have some inbuilt assessment. Every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes, the teacher should try to assess the students for their learning. That will make the learners more engaged. And proper communication strategies. So you need to apply proper communication strategies. It is not just one-way communication. You should give ample opportunity, or appropriate engagement strategies should be employed within the online delivery of the content. And appropriate learning experience and applying key learnings from the previous sessions and topics will also make the online learning more effective. So all these will make online medical education a formal education. Otherwise, online education, though you include all the content and then other things, it will not sound like formal education, and it will be a kind of informal or non-formal education. So now, here are some of the practical ideas for creating a compelling, engaging and enjoyable online learning environment. One is use your students exploring editing and creative skills. As I told you already, all our students are tech-savvy people, and then they are well versed in exploring the digital environment. So you can make use of their abilities. And then the second thing is emphasize group projects. So you can make group students into different groups and then assign group projects so that they involve themselves in online environment and submit group projects and interact with students as they work. So try to interact with students by posing questions in the online environment, take their answers like that. So there are different ways how you can interact with your learners and solicit questions and mix it up. So you don't have to stick on to one particular methodology. Please try to identify a mixed method of delivering the content with reference to the context. So always you see that whether you are delivering the content with reference to the content, context. So the next thing is as it was already mentioned, that teachers need to be well equipped. Though teachers are familiar with the content, but they are not familiar with the pedagogy. So if they are familiar with the content and the pedagogy, sometimes they are not familiar with the appropriate technology that they are supposed to use. So here comes a framework, which is called as technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. This framework is called as the technological, pedagogical, content knowledge framework. The technological, which is otherwise called as TPCK framework, which it describes the kinds of knowledge required by teachers for the successful integration of technology in teaching. So it suggests that teachers need to know about the intersections of technology, pedagogy, and content. So in nutshell, a teacher should be, usually teachers will be familiar with their content, but they may not know which pedagogical approach is suitable for the selected content. So second thing, they should be familiar with the pedagogical. Third one is the appropriate application of appropriate technology to deliver the content. So that is what this familiar framework was.
So, can
Can I request the instructor to please mute their mic? Yeah. So, if the teachers are familiar with this TPCK framework, definitely they can deliver effective online courses. Then, how to plan an online teaching learning session? Of course, the teachers are familiar with the objectives of what we are going to teach, and there are 3 stages of teaching. I mean, whether it is online or offline, there are 3 stages of teaching. One is the pre-teaching, during the teaching, and post-teaching, or otherwise called as pre-session, session, and post-session. So plan your activities accordingly. What activities are, what assignments you are going to give your learners before they come to attend your sessions. So assign activities accordingly, and design your instructional session, the direct delivery of sessions accordingly, which content is to be delivered, what questions you are going to ask, how you are going to assess, what kind of feedback you are going to give, and what kind of learning resources you are going to use, which case scenario, something like that. So arrange the content, organize the content along with the the activities for the student. That will be part of the session or during this teaching session. And post session, don't think your session ends with the online session. The session allotted for the fixed hour, whether it is online or offline. Even the session, the teaching or learning can continue even after your session ends, which is always called as post-session activities. These post-session activities can be in the form of reflective writing, or it can be in the form of feedback, or it can be in the form of making questions by the students, or it can be in the form of group discussions, or it can be in the form of identifying some gray areas and taking it for discussion. So all these things can be post-session activities. For this, there are a lot of technological tools available that we will be dealing in the subsequent slides. And the next part is, while planning your session, you should see that all the 3 domains are taken care in a more balanced manner. So some teachers mostly focus on the cognitive domain and all. Some teachers focus more on the psychomotor skills. Some teachers do not take care of the affective domain. So you see that all these 3 domains are taken care in a more balanced manner, and generate learning evidence. So teaching is a simple thing nowadays. So teaching, we may think that, okay, I have taught this content, this difficult content, this much time and all. But the more important in a teaching session is generating learning evidence for the session. So the learning evidence from the teacher and the learning evidence developed by the students. So what kind of learning evidence you aim to generate, whether it is the answers for your questions, or it is whether it is the resources generated by the students, whether it is the responses for your resources by the students. So there are different types of learning evidences which you can expect from your learners, and that depends on how you plan your teaching session. So more important is, that is the evidence that will tell you that you have taught your students and your students have learned. If there are no evidences, you cannot say that you have taught your learners. That is one important component of online education. The next parameter is the provision of correction, reinforcement, feedback, and assessment. So during your session, provide opportunity for your learners to pose questions, and then you can answer their questions, or you pose questions and then take responses from them. If they give correct response, give positive reinforce. If they don't give correct response, give some negative reinforce, and then motivate them to give further answer. And above all, you should also try to assess them then and there, and then give your feedback. And avenues, and your session should not end abruptly, and it should motivate them intrinsically so that they seek further knowledge even after going out of your classroom or at the end of your online session. So here is a small grid that will help you to plan your lesson. So now NMC has come out with competencies, and these competencies are broken down into simpler objectives. And these objectives are distributed based on the three domains, that is cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains. That will help the teacher to plan their session accordingly, so that they can distribute the content and then make their session plan more effectively that will take care of all the three domains. And the next column talks about the teaching principles. Here the teacher will determine for himself whether what kind of approach the teacher is going to follow. If it is a content that needs to be mastered compulsorily, then your approach should be pedagogy. And if it is a content that needs to be mastered, told by this to a teacher and mastered by the learner, then you have to follow the andragogical principles. And if it is a content that is nice to learn contents, that means if the learner has more interest on special interest on one particular content, then the teacher has to follow the heterogogical approach. So the first one, everything is decided by the teacher, that is what to learn, how to learn, and how to teach, what the students all these things.
What we did in Rajasthan is also one of the
Please mute your mic.
Participating instructors, please mute your mic. If you have any questions,
so Rajasthan is famous for IIT JEE. Quota, there are a lot of institutions. So what we did MOU with Talent Career Institute. Free of cost at no cost.
so the next part is the learning theories, and I think you people should be aware of these, the major theories, that is cognitivism, behaviorism, and constructivism. Fit your content accordingly. And the next important column is the activities that you propose to give your learners, whether it is going to be a reading exercise or writing exercise or thinking exercise, discussion forum, or reflective writing or reflection exercise. So it is graded in such a way that it moves from lower order thinking to the higher order thinking. So if it is a reading and writing, then it becomes a lower order. If it is a little more thing involving thinking, such as case scenarios and problem solving exercises, that will lead to higher order thinking. So it includes reading, writing, thinking, discussing, reflection, problem solving, analyzing, creating, reasoning, judging, and evaluating a situation, etc. So you plan your activities. You don't have to include all the activities. It depends on the content and the context that you are that you are dealing with. So again, it can be distributed. You don't have to use all the exercises, all the strategies in one session. It can be distributed across pre-session, session, and then post-session. Then the next one is about the learning evidences that you are going to generate. What kind of learning evidence? Whether it is going to be answers, or it is going to be reflective writing, or it is going to be their own learner's creation. So there are different kinds of learning evidences. So you fix the learning evidences. So that will be an indicator for you to say that your learners have reached the particular level with reference to the curricular objectives or with reference to the session objectives. The next comes the assessment. Assessment can also be graded accordingly, whether it is recall or it is lower order understanding or higher order understanding or reflective level. So there are three forms of assessment. One is the you can test them to their memory level, or you can test them at their understanding level, or you can test them at the reflective level. So reflective level is the higher order testing, wherein you can give them scenarios and then ask them to solve a problem, like how do you manage a case, or how do you manage this case in those limited setting. Such cases can be given for assessment at higher order level. Then finally, based on their performance, you can give them feedback. So all these things can be done online, and there are different types of tools available to do all these things. So whether it is pre-session or during the session or post-session, there are a number of tools available for doing all these things. And the next comes is the remote active teaching learning strategies and digital tools. I have just compiled a list of tools for reading, for listen, read, write, discuss, solve, create, and evaluate, judge. There are different tools, and there are e-books, podcasts, and all these things are available for the first one. And online lectures, you have Zoom and Google Meet and Microsoft platforms are available. I think most of you might be familiar with this because of thanks to the COVID. That has made all our teachers to get familiarized with all these platforms. And next one is the online quiz, opinion polls, for which you can use box vote and then poll everywhere. Poll everywhere is a very convenient tool which you can incorporate in your day-to-day PowerPoint presentation, and you can assess your learners on the spot during the session. And online test, for online test you can make use of Testmasters, which is very user-friendly platform, and it is available free if the question is limited to 50, and you can even use Google Forms and then class markers. And e-assignments can be given to the participants with the help of Google Classroom. Google Classroom can be used for that, and even Canvas can also be used for delivering modules as well as for assigning e-assignments. And discussion forums, for discussion forum you can use email and then Google Groups. And for collaborative writing, there is a platform called as Google Docs. I think most of you may be aware of this, wherein you can announce a topic and then make the students to contribute in the Google Docs, which you can even generate evidence for their learning. You know who has contributed, which point is contributed by which individual. All those things will make evidence for their learning, and it will make them to take part compulsorily, which is otherwise called as compelling environment. Google Docs provides a compelling and collaborative environment for the learners to take part. And next one is about the reading exercises. E-books are available for reading exercises, and listening exercise podcasts. See, these things you cannot just like that. You can incorporate always. You can attach an assessment component to all these things, so that there will be an evidence for you to check whether your learners have read gone through the e-books or listened to the podcast. So assessment component is always essential to check whether your learners they have involved in the learning process or not. The next one is watch and learn activity. That is, you can suggest YouTube links and then ask them to go through and then come out with their own reflection about YouTube, or you can ask them to identify best YouTube related to the content. And then there are also other video resources. You can even ask them to create their own resources. And virtual learning environments are there. Universities like Harvard Medical Institutes, they have developed free virtual laboratories, which you can suggest to your learners to go through by giving them some tasks, so that you will have evidence for them to for having visited such laboratories. And next one is digital case scenarios are available. You don't have to prepare. And students as teachers and creators, so you can assign tasks to the students. So they ask them to take online classes for their own groups, and you can ask them to create PowerPoints, ask them to create MCQs, ask them to create questions, ask them to create assignments, or ask them to even create scenarios, so that you can correct, and then so that will lead the learners to get better understanding about the content. So we don't have to be dominate the learning sessions. Now it is the age where learners should be given appropriate opportunity to involve in learning and then create their own resource and take part in the learning process. So e-portfolio is again one more broad area thing where the learners generate and post their learning evidences. So this e-portfolio is better than the manual portfolio, because manual portfolio they accumulate and then write, but in e-portfolio every hour, every day you get report about the students. And next about the students, e-learning circles, identify some group of students and then make a circle called as e-learning circle, assign them some topics, and so that they themselves discuss and then come out with a summary, and then they will submit to the moderator or to the teacher. So MOOCs and SWAYAM are better. There are these are sites which have their own self-learning modules, which can be used for self-determined learning or self-directed learning by the students. And COVID pandemic as a learning opportunity. Not only COVID pandemic, whenever there is a disaster or whenever there is a disease outbreak, you can engage your learners to explore about the endemic or about the outbreak and then come out with their opinion. So now during the pandemic, our students were engaged in taking census, taking surveys, talking to the patient. So they come to know about the disease, they come to know about the patient, they come to know about the management techniques. So such opportunities will give the learners. So all these things are possible with the digital. So that is one opportunity we can provide to our learner, and online mentoring is also possible, and student blogging. So this I don't have to explain. These are all self-explanatory, and online competition. So you can conduct short film festival, PowerPoint competition, MCQ competition. So like that, there are a lot of competitions which you can introduce. See, these things are engagement techniques which you can do out of the classroom hours. So it can be both hybrid. Because in pre-session you can give some of these activities. During the classroom you can take up their response and then discuss. And post-session activities you can conduct competition. So this will create a healthy spirit, competitive spirit among the learners. So these are some of the tools available for remote engagement of your learners. So apart from that, there are also possibility to convert the traditional. In traditional classroom, you might be using these techniques like think, pair, and share. The same thing can be followed adopted online. There are possibilities. You can share a question online with a group of students and ask them to respond. So what they thought and what their partner thought. So this we have tried, and then we have successfully we were able to successfully involve students and then come out with productive responses from the students. So they felt it is very engaging, and they also felt that it is interesting and exciting for them. Because now you see every student has an iPhone in their hand, and they are just wasting their time by looking into some unwanted things, or we can say which is not the curricular things. So you can make their time more. You can make them to spend their time for more curricular activities. So this is one exercise we tried, and then we were successful. And roundtable brainstorming is another exercise that also we were successful. So here we divided the group into 2 e-groups, each containing 10 students. Each student will post one question to the other student. This they did in Microsoft Teams. So here they generate as many answers as possible for one single question. So this not only widens their mental horizon, this also takes them to what is a deeper understanding about the subject. They'll get to listen to other members' answer. They get to know about the learning style or the understanding ability of others. So all these things are possible with this. And circular question is about, again, one more thing that we tried. So it is divided into 2 groups. Each member of the group asks one question to the other group, and then they briefly get an answer. And the same answer should not be repeated by the other person. So this makes them to, this compels them to give a new answer for the same question. And so like that, the cycle will repeat. So second question, third question, like that. For each and every question, you get a concrete answer, concrete to abstract answer, or a different kinds of answer. And sometimes they even think out of the box and then give answer, which is otherwise called as that is this method circular question. And you may be familiar with the concept mapping. There are many online sites. You give them the concept that they go and build their own concept maps for the concepts, and different students build different concept maps. That enhances their critical thinking ability and finally leads to creativity. So they start with simple way of constructing a concept map, and then ends with a big, multiple branches, a concept mapping with multiple branches. So that is one way how you can engage the learners in concept mapping. And the next thing is collaborative writing. So announce them that give them a platform like Google Docs. So each one will contribute, which I have contribute their own ideas on the spot and online. So as a moderator, you can see how many people are participating, what kind of answers they are giving, what level of answers they are giving. So all these things that will help you to understand what group of learners you are handling, and then accordingly you can plan your sessions, and accordingly you can give them feedback also. And the next thing is about 1 minute paper. This we did on Google platform. Immediately after a session, we'll share a link with these participants, and they'll post answers for these 3 questions. That is, here is what I learned today, and here are some questions I still have. So the students will answer for all these questions. Within 2-3 minutes, you get response from the students, and accordingly you can steer forward your next part of your lecture. So these are some next part of your lecture. This will help you to understand whether the students are following you or not, and whether is there any muddiest point that they don't understand. So you take up those things and then make the participants to learn clearly. And the next one is next question is that is there any behavioral indicators for you to to say that whether your learners are actively engaged or not. The first indicator is the observational learning behavior or indicator, which includes reading emails. If your learners read the email and then respond to that, say yes or no or answer to that, that is an indicator. Reading discussion posts and then posting comment on that. Viewing videos and then posting comment on the videos or reflection on the videos. Viewing lectures and then giving the reflection. Documenting certain things and continuous virtual presence, So you can make them to sit in your, make their virtual presence by asking them question bar or to post, switch on their video and come on to the screen. So all these things are indicators to say that your learners are engaged. So this is observational learning behavior. And second indicator is the application learning behavior. That is an indicator that includes posting forums, that is response to the forums, writing reply mails, taking online quizzes and other tests, post questions, seek feedback, give feedback, seek clarification, post self-created resources, making learning visible. So whatever thing that makes their learning visible, that's what I earlier mentioned, that generating evidence for their learning. Because everything is now evidence-based. Medicine, not only medicine, even learning is evidence-based. Teaching is evidence-based. So you have to see that whether the learning is meaningful for them and learning is made visible. So that is this indicator that will show that your learners are engaged actively. And the next thing is evidence for meaningful learning may also be established by doing a systematic interactional analysis. This is called as What is this interaction analysis? This interaction analysis is nothing but you might be getting the responses from the learners, whether email or group, Google, online discussion forum responses. If you could do an interaction analysis, you can understand what kind of learners you are handling, what is their level of understanding, how they learn, what is their learning style, what is their thinking style. So all these things can be mapped, which is called as you are collecting a big data about your learners. So most of the time we are focusing on the achievement or the mark or their attendance. But these are some of the data which is very essential in this era of big data. So that will give you about the spend picture of each and every learner, and then you can try to individualize their learning. So that is one thing. These are the indicators to say that your learners are engaged effectively in an online environment. So how to encourage your learners, the teachers, teacher educators and the learners in online participation. One way is incentivize their achievements. And then maybe if teachers, you can grade them, you can certify them for their involvement and give them a certificate of appreciation, give them some fund to develop some online platforms, reward them for group performance. Nowadays, gamification is one thing. So there is a popular site called as Kahoot. You can use Kahoot site for making MCQs and then involve. So this is called as gamification. So it will be just like playing a game, and then that will also motivate them. When they see more marks, again they will tend to think more deeply and then give respond to your answer. So gamifying with badges and then certificates. So now you could have seen in school students carrying badges in their certificates, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. Like this, teachers can also be awarded with such kind of encouraging badges, and then the certificates provide timely constructive feedback for their performance, adding self-assessment rubrics, and all those things will encourage teacher and learner participation in online education. The idea is that online education should not be just like the online education, online delivery of content. You have to see whether it is meaningful or and then you should try to generate evidence for learning. So these are some of the ways how you can engage the learners and the teacher. So to conclude, online active teaching, learning and engagement strategies, they help learners to continuously involve themselves in the learning process and will also foster good study habits in them without compromising their professionality. You might have witnessed during the COVID. So even teachers who are not tech savvy, so they learned how to handle content in an online environment, how to interact with the learners, and how to continuously involve the. Initially, many of the teachers faced a problem in involving the learners, and the learners were also not clear what their teachers expect from them. Slowly, what happened is that the teachers learned how to engage the learners in an online environment, and thus that developed good study habits among them. Now, if you ask your students, some of the students are more comfortable with the online environment because their study habits have changed. It is because of the way we dealt them in an online environment. Even some of the teachers are now comfortable with the online environment. Okay, even see if you look at the corporate sectors, they are still working from home. So they not only save time, energy and other things, they are motivated to do their work. Maybe half of them, they wanted to continue their work from home because of certain exciting features that is available in the online environment. And next thing is all these require faculty involvement, identification of appropriate digital learning platforms, designing of educational activities and proper. See, please keep in mind the educational activities that you design for a traditional environment is entirely different from that you design for an online environment. So that's why I have given you a grid as well as how to make a session plan for online teaching and learning. So proper planning is most important. Finally, technology cannot fully substitute a good teaching or a teacher. It can be used as an effective tool for actively engaging the students both inside and out. So like a plumber who enters your house with different tools. Imagine a plumber who enters your home without a proper tool. He can do a good work, but he will not do a good work. He will damage the pipes, he will damage the things, all those things. But if the same plumber comes with the appropriate tools, he will do a job with good workmanship. Same thing applies to our teachers. In an online environment, there are different n number of tools available, digital tools available. If teachers are familiar with those tools, definitely you can do justice for your online teaching. So with this, let me conclude, and I thank all the online participants for their participation. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take some.